Start. We can clip the beginning. That's no big deal. So we started? Perfect. Okay. All right. My name is Damon Sisk. I've met most of you, but don't know all of you. I've given I help a lot of students with resumes each semester, and if we can close the door also, that'll be good. I help a lot of students with resumes, and I've developed a method that generates resumes that students feel comfortable with. So we'll talk through that and how it goes. It's going to be a two-session workshop, I guess. Professor McCart is going to come in during the second workshop and give his information. He's got some good information too about your resume. But the method that I've created helps students feel very comfortable with their resumes. So I've given all of you what I call a demo resume, and this resume is kind of a conglomeration, but it's based primarily on one particular student who graduated and moved out to the East Coast. He wanted to find a job in, I think, North Carolina, if I remember right. So there's usually two types of students that come to me. There's the type of student that has some engineering related experience and the type that does not. Now, it doesn't actually matter. See, here's the problem. Students will tend to think, oh, I need to show on my resume that I've got engineering experience. So I'm going to try to take my classwork and teamwork, and I'm going to use that as my context to say, I'm an engineer. Well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to create a resume that looks like you've got 5 years or 10 years or 30 years worth of experience, because you don't. You don't need that. Now, do you think a company wants to hire somebody that's got 30 years of experience so they can pay them $200,000 a year? Or do they want to hire you at $50,000 a year? It's pretty easy, isn't it? Right? You're cheaper. That doesn't mean you'll always be cheaper, right? You're going to climb in the world and advance your salary and all that. But my point is, you're valuable. You don't have to pretend you're something you're not to be valuable. You don't have to show on your resume that you have hardcore engineering experience. I solved this differential equation which made the rocket fly to the moon. You don't have to do that. They don't expect you to be able to do that. In fact, how many of you are METs? And ECETs for the rest? I assume? I know one ECET. And you guys are ET. Okay, all right. So what I'm saying applies to you guys just the same as METs. When you're applying for an entry-level position, that's what your resume should reflect, right? It should be appropriate for getting an entry-level position. Now, you probably don't realize this, but if you're in this program, you're different than the average population. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed going to main campus, studying engineering, and realize, oh, there are other people in the world that are as crazy as I am, that think all these things are neat, that think the way that electrons flow in conductors is actually a cool thing, or that mechanisms are very interesting. Believe me, you have a lot of value. The problem is discovering that value and writing about it. Here's what most students do. They'll write a resume, and on the resume they will put their past experience. So Burger King, flipped burgers, took out the trash. Do you think anybody's going to hire you to do those things? Of course not, right? No, that's not what engineering positions are about. What are they hiring you for? Well, nothing that I did at Burger King. Well, that's not necessarily the case. When you were at Burger King, did you have to deal with difficult customers? Probably. Did you have to take out the trash? Probably. How do those two things translate over to an engineering position? It's actually pretty simple. No matter what you do, you always have a customer. You have customers above you. Those people are your boss, the president of the company, whoever. Your co-workers, right? You have to keep them happy too. The people below you or beside you, all these people are your customers. If you make a drawing that the machine shop has to build, or you make an electrical circuit that has to be soldered together, somebody has to make that, and that somebody is your customer. Okay, so there will be difficult customers in that scenario too. There'll be some people that are easy to work with, some that are hard. And the skills that you learned at Burger King, for example, will actually translate to working with those people. I know it seems strange, but that's actually the case. Now, what students usually do, like I said, is they'll try to write a resume, and they'll put all the things on it. They'll find some template somewhere and start filling it in. And when they get to the work experience section, which is down here, which to me is kind of the meat and potatoes of your resume, they feel like, oh, I want to show engineering skills, but I don't really have them. And so they'll start to stretch things. And this project that I had in school represents that I can do engineering, so I'm going to write it that way. And then when you get to the interview, you feel like you have to defend your resume, and it makes you close up. I don't know about you, but most engineers, the stereotypical engineer, I was too before I started teaching, the stereotypical engineer is hesitant to speak about what they've done. They're kind of, what's the word, introverted, right? That's the classic engineer, and that's probably the way some of you are as well. So you don't want to go into an interview with already feeling like you've got to defend something, right? That's going to make you clam up worse. You want something that springboards you into the interview. In fact, let me ask you a question. What's the purpose of an interview, or what is the purpose of a resume? Do you know? Draw their attention. What else? Represents you. Anybody want to give me the right answer? What's that? To get an interview. That's it. That's the only purpose of your resume. You see, this could be a history book, the story of my life, right? This is what I've done so far. No one cares. The job that you're interviewing for, nobody actually cares what you've done in the past. What they care about is what you're going to do in the future for them. That's what they care about. And that's what you're selling, right? You're trying to sell your skills. And you might say, well, I don't have any. I disagree. I think you do have skills. I think you have a lot of skills that you have not recognized yet. All right, so let's go through. I've got the demo resume in hand, and I'll put it on the screen as well. But let's go through it one section at a time. And let's talk about all the other stuff besides the work experience section. Let's start with the career objective. To me, this is a bit, well, in fact, let's start at the very top. Demo student, that's where you put your name, because you want to make sure they know who they're looking at. On the right, I recommend you use the format I've got. On the right, you notice that you've got your address and your city state. They are not going to write a letter to you asking you to come in for an interview. You know what they're going to do? They're going to call you or email you. That's why it goes over on the left-hand side. In English, we read from left to right. And so you want all the important stuff on the left-hand side, all the unimportant stuff or ancillary information on the right. Okay? Next, career objective. That might be a little bit overstated for this resume. This is a one-page resume. You shouldn't have more than a one-page resume, in my opinion, because you haven't got enough experience for more than one page. Okay? You should have a one-page resume, and I think that will, what I call, keep you in the pile. You want to stay in the pile. What do I mean by that? Well, when a company is looking for the next candidate, the next worker, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to advertise, right? And so they're going to get in a pile of resumes this thick that human resources is going to file through, and the pile is going to go from about that to about that. It's not going to change much, all right? Because human resources is not sure what's needed in every department. That's not their specialty. They don't know what the mechanical engineering or the electrical engineering department needs. All they know is that these resumes say engineer. So we're going to keep that. And why do the resumes say engineer? Because the people that are applying for the job are smart enough to see it's an engineering position. I probably ought to have engineer on my resume somewhere. You see? So now, guess what happens? Well, now that pile of resumes goes to the manager of the department that's looking for the next great employee who needs it right now. And since he needs them right now, he's doing that job. He or she is doing that job right now, which means they don't have much time. They're doing their own job, plus the job they're trying to hire for, plus they're trying to find the next person. So what are they going to do? They're going to use any excuse they can to throw a resume out of the pile, right? Theater major, gone, right? I don't care that you got an engineering degree before that. You went and got a theater degree because you're not interested in engineering and you're not going to stay, so I'm not interested in you, you see? Okay, so you got to think about these things and decide what you're going to put on your resume. And so you want to stay in the pile. You want to be one of the resumes that's left. And how do you do that? Well, you show them something they're interested in. Now, there was a study that was done probably a couple of times. I wish I had a computer in front of me. I'd show it to you. Maybe I can overlay it on the video. But there was a study done, and basically what they did is they tracked the eyeballs of people who were used to reviewing resumes. So they put a resume in front of the person, tracked the person's eyes so they could tell where on the page the person was looking. They generated what's called a heat map. So the longer a person looked at one section, the hotter it got. You know, the more red it became. So overall, the resume was blue, and if you looked at a certain part, it would get warmer and warmer and warmer, and that way you could get an idea of where these professionals looked at resumes. You know what they found? They found that they looked at the beginnings of things. They very rarely went to the ends of things. It's very rare to read everything on your resume. All the important stuff, therefore, needs to be on the left. All the stuff that attracts the eyes and says, hey, this is a person I'd like to talk to. I want to give them an interview. All that should be on the left-hand side of the resume, okay? And that's why I say your actual contact information should be on the left side. Now let's look at the career objective. Like I said, that's overstated a little bit. I don't think it should be career objective. I think it should be simply objective. And you know what I think should be in your objective? It's simple. Do I want part-time or full-time work? I think that's basically what you're trying to tell them. Am I available for full-time work? Because if the engineering manager needs someone full-time and you're a student and you can't do full-time, you don't want that job anyway and they don't want you. Right? On the other hand, if it's a part-time position and they want an intern to come in for 20 hours a week and you can do that, that's the kind of position you're looking for. So to me, this, what does it say? It says seeking a full-time position to gain experience in mechanical engineering, technology, and design fields to utilize and develop my skills at NetShape. Well, NetShape is a company, this student was brown-nosing just a little bit, saying, I really want to work for you guys, right? That's okay, you can do that if you want, but number one, I don't think it should break the line. I think it should be one line at most. Everybody understands you're trying to increase your skills in the field. That's why you went into the field in the first place, because you're interested in it. And obviously you want to keep learning. Everybody knows that. You don't have to say that. Basically, you need to say seeking full-time position or seeking part-time position to hone my skills. That would be good enough, okay? That's enough. Next section says education. You'll notice that I've got the degree first, BS Mechanical Engineering Technology. Obviously ECT would be EET or ECT, whatever you're in, okay? I suggest here's a place where you can be honest, because students try to be honest on their resume to make up for the fact that they're being dishonest, claiming to be full-fledged engineers. And so they try to make everything as accurate as possible. What day exactly did I start working for Burger King? Nobody cares. Put the year down, that's close enough. Okay, but here you can put your GPA. This is a chance to be honest. Now you can say, well, I don't have a very good GPA. Should I really put it on my resume? Yes. You're not looking for a job that requires a high GPA type of student. You're looking for a job that fits you. Does that make sense? I've had a student that was one of my worst students ever. I remember him. I won't tell you his name. He came through and I thought, man, this guy's going to have a problem getting a job. Well, he found a job where his organization skills, because this student was actually really good at organization. He wasn't necessarily good at doing the thermodynamics hardcore calculations in that class, but he was really good at being organized. He had really neat handwriting. His homework was usually wrong, but really neat at least. And you know what he found? He found a fastener company that needed organization. He went to work for them and is making more than a lot of my good students are making now, because he had a skill that was valuable, okay? So it's a matter of recognizing what your skills are. We wrote a resume together. He put his GPA on the resume. He was hired anyway. Okay? So don't worry that your GPA is going to knock you out of jobs. Worry that it won't knock you out of jobs. Worry that it'll get you a job if you don't put it on. They think you're a great student because you're going to Purdue. Worry that it'll get you a job that you can't handle. Okay? You want to find something that fits you. Next, on the right-hand side, I have less important information. Here's the graduation date. This is an old one, so it was May 2014 expected. So this resume was written about 2010, 2012, somewhere around that range, okay? Don't be afraid to write it this way. Now, you can look at this and say, yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to pass all the classes I'm in this semester. How can I say that I expect to graduate? Well, that's your plan, right? We understand that plans change. Really what the company wants to know is not what exact day will you graduate without failing any classes. Here's what they want to know. They want to know about when can I expect to hire you full time. That's what they want to know. Because our students are students that, well, for one thing, it's the rare student that walks across the stage and doesn't already have a job before they get their diploma in hand. But also our students, bar none, are students that go to work in internships and then the company begs to hire them. That's the way it goes with our students. That's what you can expect to encounter once you leave here or even while you are here. In fact, as the internship coordinator, I tell a lot of companies that contact me, I say, look, the seniors and the juniors, they're all hired. They know where they're going. You got to shoot for the sophomores and freshmen. Those are the ones you want to talk to if you want to get our students, because that's the ones that are available. It's the rare juniors and senior that have not got internships and thereby going to have their own jobs. Next, you see relevant coursework. This is a filler area. A lot of students try to put, oh, I've had this course, I've had this course, I've had this course. That means I can do these things for you. Well, trust me. The BS in MET or the BS in EET, that's enough along with your expected graduation rate for them to have a good idea of what you know and what you don't. And by the way, most of the things you learn in class, you're not going to apply directly. Okay, so you do a lot of math with us, you do a lot of work trying to get the right answer. I can count on one hand how many times I had to use equations in my 5-year practice as an engineer. And I did a lot of stuff. Well, that's not true. I did a little bit more than on one hand, but you get the idea, okay? Most of my job was not doing hardcore calculations. Most of my job was understanding physics and making a machine that would work based on my understanding of physics, okay? Now, of course, in EET, you probably have a few more calculations because you've got to size the capacitor or the resistor if you're doing design work, but you may not be, right? You may just be reflowing, dealing with a reflow line, or you've got to get the right temperature and the right process settings, right? Or maybe you're dealing with a vision system where you're dealing with more with coding and you're trying to make this system recognize whether the resistor is in place or out of place. You see? You may not be doing Ohm's law all the time, okay? So anyway, the relevant coursework is an optional section. You can just cut that out once you've got a decent work experience section, okay? So that's optional. Technical skills is another optional section. This is a section where you can write things. Let's say you've not used SolidWorks as an MET, or what's a popular EET program? Maybe SPICE or something, where you're simulating circuits? I don't know. Okay, so let's say that you've not used that in the context of a company. You've not used it for a company, but you have used it in class. Well, you can put that under technical skills because you don't really have a place to put it into work experience in context, you see. Okay? But again, that's an optional section. As soon as you've used SolidWorks for a company, put it in your work experience section because that's where it belongs. Okay? It's a good buzzword. It's a good word to recognize. You want to make it capital and make it recognizable and all those good things. Okay? But put it into the work experience section. All right? So what's next? Let's skip the work experience section for just a moment. We've got a few later arrivals. You guys are welcome. Let me pass out some more demo resumes. We're just going over our demo resume. We've talked about the purpose of a resume, which is just to get an interview. It's not a historical document that is supposed to catalog everything you've done so far in your life. That's a CV. That's a little different. Curriculum vitae, I think it's called. I don't know what it's called. Your purpose with a resume is to get an interview so you have the option to accept a job. That's basically where we are now. Honors and accomplishments. We'll skip down to that section. The honors and accomplishments section is another optional section. This is where you can put information. If you had an AP experience in high school, you got an AP degree or whatever extra that you went above and beyond. Okay, you could put that there. If you've been the president of a society or even an officer in a society, you could put it there. But again, this is optional. To me, the important part of the resume is the work experience, and that's where most students struggle. So let's talk about that section. How on earth do you come up with a good work experience section? Well, let's look at the one we've got and decide how good it is. Now, this particular student, do not be intimidated by this student. This is a student who had already gotten an internship and was looking for full-time work. So they actually did have some engineering experience, okay? But this student came to me before their experience at PTG Silicones, which was their engineering internship, and all they had was sales experience essentially. Okay, so let's actually start the way this began, and let's go down to the last job, which was for Sprint. This student was a salesperson for cell phones at Sprint. That's what he did. So let's see, 2008 to current. So the student was still going to work, or was going to school, was working at PTG Silicones, and still working as a salesperson for Sprint. What does that tell you about this student? What does it suggest? What's that? Probably, but to me it says they're a hard worker, right? They're going to school full time and working 2 jobs. It's pretty impressive. I don't know this all that smart, but it's pretty impressive, right? But anyway, let's read what the skills are. Now notice there is something from the very beginning I don't like. They've got Sprint first and retail sales consultant second. I would put the position first and the company name last, because the focus should be you, not the company, okay? In any case, let's read the first bullet point. Achieved #1 in overall district sales in 2010. Does that sound good? Does that sound impressive? Yeah, that sounds impressive. Why? Notice there is a skill word first. It's not the strongest skill word. The first word is achieved. You want to put the skill first that you're trying to sell, and you want to put the context second. Okay, this is really important. So achieved, number one in overall district sales in 2010. This is not such solid context as I won a Nobel Prize, right? It's not quite that good, but it's still pretty impressive, isn't it? It's really good context to say this person is an achiever. What does it suggest more though? Besides the idea that this person is an achiever, what does it suggest? I'd say this person is a good salesperson, wouldn't it? Right? Now, how do you say good salesperson achieved number one? You probably don't. I don't know how you'd rewrite it to make it sound better. But achieve number one, this is a good point, although the skill word may not fit all that well. I always want to see a skill word first and context second. Next point, frequently store and district sales leader surpassing quota. Well, the fact that you surpass your quota does suggest you're a good salesperson, but there's no real skill word out front. So remember I talked about the heat map? I want the person that's reading this resume, let's go up to the PTG Silicone section. I want the person that's reading this resume to read the skill words as follows: successful, responsible, manage. You see how those three words are at the very beginning of all those points? That's really important, because if that's the only thing they read, I want them to take away that I am a person offering these skills for sale to you, right? So you need to talk to me to find out more about these skills that I possess, because I think you want to buy them, okay? Now let's go ahead and jump up to the PTG Silicones section. It's all the same. It doesn't matter that the PTG Silicone section is actual engineering experience. What matters is the way it's written. So let's read the first point. Successfully led ISO 9001 quality audit and GE supplier audit. Does that sound impressive or not? Sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? How many of you know much about quality control? Anybody? That's okay. Quality control is something that's actually really important. I'll give you a real quick idea of how it works. You and I, when we go to the grocery store and we buy food, do you want to buy the food that says tainted with salmonella or the food that says USDA approved? Probably the USDA approved, because the tainted with salmonella hopefully is gone a long time ago, right? But how do you select the food that you're going to buy? Well, you want some assurance that it's quality, right? Now, fortunately, we have laws and things in this country, and if food comes in and makes people sick, there's problems, right? Things happen. It gets taken care of. But in the context of a company, let's say you're buying steel or you're buying resistors from a supplier, how do you know that that raw material is quality? You don't really, right? You can bring it in, you can do some statistical testing, take a piece of steel, stretch it, see how it stretches. You can take in the resistors, see what the tolerance rating on them, can they really take the power that they're rated at or not, right? You can do that, but you really don't want to do that all the time with all your suppliers, because companies have thousands upon thousands of suppliers. If they had to do this with all their suppliers, it'd be a big pain, all right? So what's normally done is outside agencies like the ISO 9001 is actually a certification that multiple companies can give, but you hire a company to come in. If you're somebody that sells to other companies, you hire this company to come in and evaluate what you're doing and make sure that you're doing it in a quality manner, that what you're producing is consistent and high quality. And then you basically get a stamp of approval. Now you're ISO 9001 approved, okay? And then what you can do is you can take that certificate to people that want to buy from you and say, hey, look, see this certificate? This outside company says that I consistently produce good stuff. You don't have to bother measuring what I send you. It will be good. And here's a company that has given me a certificate to back that up. Well, guess what? That just made you as a supplier much more valuable, because now all the different companies you sell to, who themselves have thousands of suppliers they buy from, they don't have to go and certify all the individual suppliers. So this is actually really important. Now think about it from PTG Silicone's standpoint. They are a supplier. They want people to buy the stuff they make. This quality audit, what is that? Well, that's where a company is about to come in and pick you apart before they give you the certificate, right? To make sure that you're building quality stuff, that what you supply to companies will be high quality. So this was a student who led this audit. This is a student who basically has their finger on the pulse, on the jugular vein of the company, and this company is going to live or die by this audit. That's pretty important, isn't it? Right? Now, of course, things happen, and sometimes the company doesn't quite pass, so they take corrective actions, and then they pass. So that's possible. So it's not like the student really had the ability to kill this company off by doing a bad job, but it was still pretty important. So does that suggest that this person is a successful person? Well, if they got through this audit and the company can still sell because they've still got their certification, that's a pretty good point, right? I really like this first skill point. Let's read the next one. Responsible for maintaining quality metrics, corrective actions, and internal audits. Well, this ties back into the first point. It suggests that this student is responsible. Well, yeah, quality metrics are the things that you have to show the company before they will give you your certification piece of paper. So this is also important. So I can see, wow, this student is being given a lot of responsibility because they're responsible for these key measures that then get the company certification. Let's read the next point. Manages and communicates quality concerns with suppliers, team, and leads continuous improvement efforts. He's still talking about quality control. What changed? What sounds wrong here? Let's back up to the first 2 points. Successfully led. I successfully led. I am responsible for maintaining. You hear how that sounds? That's first person. What is manages? Third person. That's he manages. He switched the tense. Is it not tense? What's the right word? Person? I don't know. Good thing I don't teach English, huh? Right? He's talking in third person instead of first person. That's a mistake. Now, this resume that I've written for you here is not 100% right. I've included some mistakes because these are common mistakes that students make. Okay?
It says current, that's why you put manages.
That may be, but he's changed the tense.
Oh, so if you put like manage and communicate?
I would put manage because I want to say I manage because I don't want to talk about myself in the third person. Right? So manage can still be present tense. Now, manage and communicate quality concerns with suppliers, team, and lead continuous improvement efforts. The support for this skill, I think, is decent. Okay, he's talking about two skills, though. He's talking about managing and communication, right? And leading continuous improvement efforts. Those are three separate skills. He could have broken this down to the three separate skills, gotten rid of relevant coursework, and had a stronger resume, right? Because with three separate skills, that's going to be three new lines that all suggest this is someone you want to hire. Think about it if you read successful, responsible, manage, communicate, and lead. That sounds better than manages and communicates quality concerns, etc. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes students will try to put more than one skill into one line, and that's a mistake. Next, conveys, again, third person reference. Conveys quality updates, concerns, and improvements in weekly production meetings. This is a little bit weaker of a skill, I think. I think the backup of, or the supporting context in weekly production meetings, I think that's okay. But by saying convey is a very passive word. How about deliver? Deliver updates, concerns, and improvements. That sounds more, I don't want to say forceful, but more forward, I guess. I don't know. It sounds better to me. And one of the difficulties is identifying the skill word that goes with that particular point. Now, you all know how to use Word, right? Have you ever used the thesaurus feature in Word? It's really handy. All you got to do, if you've got a resume and you see convey, highlight convey, right-click, and go down to thesaurus and look for synonyms for that word. And read through the synonyms and keep clicking until you find one that matches what you really feel is being expressed. Does that make sense? And this is how you'll make a resume that really shows what you've done, and you'll feel like, yes, this is something I've really done. In fact, I'll tell you more about the method in just a minute, but when students come to me and I help them write their resume and we're at the end where they're saying, yeah, this is a good resume, you know what happens? I'll ask them about one of their points and they will just start talking about it. There's so much more information that they have about what they did in that context, they just open up. Wouldn't that be great in an interview to just be able to open up and feel free to talk about what you've done? All right, that's what this will generate. All right, next point. Tell me what's wrong with this last point under PTG Silicones. Works independently with little or no supervision while taking initiative, being resourceful and organized. What's wrong with that point? In fact, I would say that there's been an evolution here. I would say that the points have gone from really good to really bad. Would you want someone who works independently? Sure, absolutely. That's a skill worth talking about. Okay? What's wrong here? What do you see missing that all the other points have? First of all, there's the works independently, third person, that's a problem. But beyond that, What have we got? Do you see how the other points all have very strong context? There's no context here. This is little more than saying, I'm great, hire me. Right? That's all it's saying. There's certainly valuable things here, valuable skills that I would like this person to have, but you haven't proven to me that you have them if this is what you write. It's kind of funny, I was working with a student on their resume the other day, and they had actually copied this point. And I was like, no, that's a bad point. The skills are good, but you need context for that to support it, okay? All right, let's go back down to the sprint section and let's see if you can identify some good and bad things. Let's go down to the third point. Achieve goals through teamwork and coaching others. What do you see here?